The Grand Galactic Alliance had existed for 12,000 years. 12,000 years of scientific progress, cultural refinement, and the kind of interspecies cooperation that made everyone involved feel terribly smug about themselves. The Alliance spanned 17 major star systems, encompassed 32 sentient species, and possessed technology so advanced that most of their citizens couldn't actually explain how any of it worked. None of which was currently helping them win this blasted war. Commander Vex Talia of the Calirian Defense Force stared at the holographic battle projections with 4 of her 6 eyes, while the remaining 2 scanned the anxious faces of her bridge crew. The Nexus Dominion had pushed back Alliance forces in 3 consecutive engagements, and this sector would be next. Her sleek exoskeleton gleamed under the soft blue lighting of the bridge as she absently tapped her primary manipulator against the command console. "Status report," she demanded, her voice carrying the slight harmonic resonance characteristic of all Calirians. Lieutenant Grath, a gelatinous Morbian whose translucent body currently displayed a nervous shade of orange, bubbled slightly before responding. "The Dominion fleet will arrive within 6 cycles, Commander. Our defensive line is, well, it's what we have." "That inspires tremendous confidence, Lieutenant," Vex Talia replied dryly. "Perhaps you could be a touch more specific." 17 cruisers, 32 support vessels, and the planetary defense grid. The Dominion is bringing at least twice that number based on our long-range scans. Vex Talia made a clicking sound with her mandibles, the Calirian equivalent of a sigh. "And High Command expects us to hold this position with these resources. High Command says this sector is of vital strategic importance and must be defended at all costs," recited Communications Officer Drell, a tall, thin Vithari whose species was known for their photographic memory and complete lack of imagination. Their exact words were, "Victory is expected, failure is unacceptable." "How wonderfully helpful," Vex Talia muttered. "Did they perhaps include instructions on how to violate the laws of physics, or are we expected to determine that ourselves?" The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew the situation was dire. The Nexus Dominion had emerged from the uncharted regions of the galaxy 2 years ago, bringing with them weapons technology that somehow matched or exceeded that of the Alliance, despite their apparent lack of cultural refinement or proper diplomatic protocol. The Dominion didn't negotiate or compromise. They simply took what they wanted and destroyed anyone who stood in their way. "How uncivilized." "Commander," called out sensor specialist Kip, a furry Lotheran with oversized eyes and ears, "we're detecting an anomaly at the edge of the system." "Dominion scouts." "No, ma'am. I'm not quite sure what it is. The energy signature doesn't match anything in our database." Vex Talia moved to the sensor station, all 6 eyes focusing on the readouts. "A new Dominion weapon? I don't believe so. It's approaching through regular space, not using any known form of FTL travel, and it's broadcasting a message in over 300 different languages. Put it on screen." The main view screen flickered, then displayed a simple text message in the formal diplomatic language of the Alliance. "Greetings from Earth. We come in peace." "Mostly." Vex Talia's antennae twitched in confusion. "Earth? I'm not familiar with that system. Is it one of the outer colonies?" "It's not in the Alliance database at all, Commander," replied Drell, whose species took particular pride in their comprehensive knowledge of galactic politics. "They must be from beyond the outer rim. Primitives, most likely. Primitives who've somehow developed interstellar travel," Vex Talia noted. "Scan their vessel." Kip manipulated the controls, then made a sound suspiciously like a snort. "You won't believe this, Commander. Their ship appears to be made primarily of metal." "Metal," repeated Vex Talia incredulously, "as in solid metallurgical compounds, not crystalline composites or living metal, or even basic phase matter. Just metal, ma'am. Steel, titanium, aluminum, incredibly primitive, and they're using what appears to be chemical propulsion for their maneuvering thrusters." The bridge erupted in chitters and burbles of amusement. Even Vex Talia's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. "They're powering their ship with controlled explosions," asked Tactical Officer Zreen, a cybernetically enhanced Phasian, whose people had abandoned chemical energy approximately 8,000 years ago. "How are they not dead?" "Perhaps that explains the mostly in their peace greeting," Vex Talia said. "They're probably mostly alive as well." More laughter rippled through the bridge. "They're requesting permission to approach and establish diplomatic relations," Kip said, still chuckling. "Shall I grant clearance?" Vex Talia considered the request. On one hand, dealing with primitives was always tedious. All those explanations of concepts that any civilized being understood from infancy. On the other hand, the Alliance's position was desperate enough that she couldn't afford to ignore any potential opportunity, no matter how unlikely. Grant them clearance, she decided, but maintain defensive posture. For all we know, these humans might be Dominion spies, or worse, they might accidentally blow themselves up and damage one of our ships. Yes, Commander. Transmitting clearance now. As the strange metal vessel slowly approached, Vex Talia couldn't help but feel a mix of curiosity and disdain. Whoever these humans were, they clearly had no place in an advanced interstellar conflict. What could a species that hadn't even mastered basic phase matter technology possibly contribute to the Alliance's war effort? Little did she know that this unassuming arrival would change the course of the war and galactic history forever. Well, she said, straightening her exoskeleton and smoothing her commander's insignia, let's go meet these primitives. Perhaps they can serve as cannon fodder, at the very least. The bridge officers laughed again, confident in their technological superiority, and certain that these newcomers would be nothing more than a brief amusing distraction from the grim reality of their situation. They couldn't have been more wrong. The docking bay of the Alliance flagship Celestial Harmony was a marvel of engineering, a vast gleaming chamber of crystalline composites and living metal that adjusted its own molecular structure to accommodate vessels of any configuration. It was currently adjusting itself to accept a ship that by all reasonable standards shouldn't have been capable of interstellar travel. The human vessel, which they had been informed was called the USS Relentless, looked like it had been assembled by particularly ambitious children working with construction toys. Its hull was pockmarked with what appeared to be hasty repairs, and various components jutted out at angles that made Vex Talia's engineering sensibilities scream in horror. It shouldn't be able to fly, muttered Chief Engineer Locks, who had joined the welcoming committee out of morbid curiosity. The whole thing should implode due to structural stress, or explode from energy containment failure, or just fall apart. Yet here it is, Vex Talia replied. Perhaps we should consider that a data point in their favor. A docking tube extended from the Relentless, connecting with a soft hiss to the Alliance docking platform. The Alliance delegation watched with a mixture of curiosity and condescension as the airlock cycled open. The first human to step through was tall by Calirian standards, though shorter than the willowy Vithuri. He wore what appeared to be a uniform of dark blue with various metal and fabric adornments that presumably indicated rank or accomplishments. His skin was a light tan color, and the fur on top of his head, hair, according to the hastily compiled xenobiological briefing, was short and brown with flecks of gray. Greetings, he said, in surprisingly clear galactic standard. I am Captain Jack Reynolds of the United Earth Navy, commanding officer of the USS Relentless. Thank you for allowing us to approach. Vex Talia stepped forward, performing the formal greeting gesture of the Alliance, a complex movement involving all 6 of her limbs in precise coordination. I am Commander Vex Talia of the Calirian Defense Force, current tactical commander of the Alliance forces in this sector. Your arrival is unexpected. Reynolds smiled. At least Vex Talia assumed it was a smile, though the stretching of facial muscles seemed somewhat alarming. We get that a lot. Mind if my diplomatic officer joins us? She's better at the talking part. Without waiting for a response, Reynolds gestured back toward the airlock. A second human emerged, smaller than the first, with longer hair tied back from her face and skin several shades darker. Lieutenant Quinn Morgan, Diplomatic Corps, she announced, not bothering with the formal gesture that Reynolds had at least attempted. Let's skip past the part where you all think we're primitive monkeys who somehow stumbled into space, and get to the part where we help each other out. We've been monitoring your communications for the past 3 months. You're at war, you're losing, and we'd like to offer our assistance. The Alliance delegation bristled collectively at the humans' directness. Drell the Vithuri actually gasped audibly, which was considered extremely rude in most civilized contexts. I apologize for my lieutenant's forthrightness, said Reynolds, though his facial expression suggested he wasn't actually sorry at all. We humans sometimes dispense with diplomatic niceties when time is of the essence, and from what we've gathered, time is very much not on your side. Vex Talia's mandibles clicked rapidly, as she processed this unexpected approach. "You've been monitoring our communications. That's a violation of Alliance privacy protocols and could be considered an act of..." "Yeah, Yev. We're very sorry about the eavesdropping," Lieutenant Morgan interrupted with a dismissive wave of her hand. "File a complaint after we save your exoskeletons from the Nexus Dominion." Engineer Locks burbled indignantly. "With what exactly do you propose to save us? Your vessel appears to be barely holding together. Our scans indicate your weapons technology is limited to kinetic projectiles and low-yield nuclear devices. The Dominion would obliterate you in seconds." Morgan's face split into what Vex Talia was beginning to recognize as the human expression of amusement. "Don't let the duct tape fool you. The Relentless has a few surprises up her sleeve." "Your vessel has sleeves?" asked Drell, genuinely confused. "Figure of speech," Reynolds explained. "What Lieutenant Morgan means is that we've found that looking a bit rough around the edges has tactical advantages. Enemies tend to underestimate us, just as you are doing now," Morgan added with a pointed look at Locks. Vextalia decided to regain control of the conversation. "While we appreciate your offer of assistance, Captain Reynolds, I must inform you that the conflict we're engaged in involves highly advanced technology and complex battle strategies developed over millennia of interstellar warfare. With all due respect to your species' apparent achievement in reaching the stars, this is not a situation where primitive vessels can make a meaningful contribution." Reynolds and Morgan exchanged a look that Vextalia couldn't quite interpret. Then Reynolds shrugged, another peculiar human gesture. "Commander, I understand your skepticism, but here's the thing. When we humans first started exploring beyond our solar system, we expected to find a galaxy teeming with life. Turns out, we're in a pretty empty neighborhood. We've been traveling for decades without encountering any advanced civilizations until we picked up your transmissions. So finding you folks in the middle of an interstellar war is exciting for us. We'd like to help, learn, and maybe establish some mutually beneficial relationships." "And what exactly do you hope to gain from this alliance?" Vextalia asked suspiciously. "Friends," Reynolds said simply. "Trading partners. Cultural exchange. The usual reasons anyone reaches out to their neighbors." Morgan rolled her eyes. Yet another strange human expression. "What the captain is too polite to say is that we also wouldn't mind getting our hands on some of your technology. Fair trade, of course. We help you win your war. You help us upgrade our ships. Everyone benefits." Tactical Officer Zreen, who had been silently observing until now, stepped forward. "You speak confidently for representatives of a species that has only just achieved interstellar travel. What makes you believe you can contribute to our war effort?" "History," Reynolds replied. "Humans have a long distinguished history of warfare. It's not something we're proud of, exactly, but we've gotten rather good at it. And innovation," added Morgan. "We're particularly skilled at looking at problems from unexpected angles." Vextalia was about to dismiss them politely but firmly when her communication implant buzzed with an urgent message. The Dominion fleet had accelerated. They would arrive in 4 cycles, not 6. Her forces were even more outmatched than previously calculated. She looked at the humans again, reassessing. Their confidence was either the result of profound ignorance or something else. Either way, she was running out of options. "Captain Reynolds," she said finally, "I am authorized to accept auxiliary support from non-alliance species in times of severe tactical need. While I have serious reservations about your ability to contribute meaningfully to our defense, I would be neglecting my duty if I refused any potential assistance, however limited." Reynolds smiled again, this time more broadly. "Excellent. I promise you won't regret this decision, Commander." "I already have my doubts," Vextalia replied dryly. "Now if you'll accompany me to the tactical briefing room, I'll have my officers explain our current situation and the Dominion's expected approach vectors." As they walked through the gleaming corridors of the Celestial Harmony, Vextalia noticed the humans looking around with expressions of what appeared to be genuine admiration, but also with calculating eyes that missed nothing. "Impressive ship," Reynolds commented. "Very clean. The Celestial Harmony is the culmination of 12,000 years of Alliance engineering excellence," Drell informed him proudly. "Its neural crystal mainframe can perform computational feats that would take a conventional computer several millennia to calculate." "Neat," said Morgan in a tone that somehow managed to simultaneously convey both appreciation and dismissal. "Our ship's computer is called Barbara. We talk to her when we're bored. She cheats at chess. The Alliance officers exchanged confused glances. Before anyone could respond to this peculiar statement, they arrived at the tactical briefing room, where a holographic display of the star system hung in the center, highlighting the approaching Dominion fleet in ominous red. As you can see, Vex Talia began, gesturing toward the display. The Dominion forces outnumber us significantly. Their primary advantage is their phase shift technology, which allows their vessels to partially exist in a parallel dimension, making conventional targeting systems less effective. To her surprise, Reynolds and Morgan didn't seem intimidated by the display of overwhelming enemy forces. Instead, they studied the hologram with what appeared to be professional interest. Phase shift, huh? Reynolds mused. Tricky. What's their power source? Quantum vacuum extraction, replied Engineer Locks. Highly stable and virtually inexhaustible within normal combat durations. Reynolds nodded thoughtfully. And their weapons? Primarily particle beams and graviton disruptors, said Tactical Officer Zreen. Their flagship also carries a singularity cannon capable of collapsing a small moon. Fancy, Morgan commented. Do they have any weaknesses? Every fighting force has a weakness. The Alliance officers looked uncomfortable. Finally, Vex Talia spoke. Their command structure is highly centralized. If we could somehow neutralize their flagship, it would create significant confusion among their fleet. However, the flagship is always positioned at the rear of their formation, protected by multiple layers of support vessels and defensive screens. Reynolds and Morgan exchanged another of those inscrutable looks. Tell me, Commander, Reynolds said slowly, how do your people feel about seemingly suicidal plans that just might work? We generally avoid situations with a high probability of death, Vex Talia replied, her antenna twitching in confusion. That's a shame, Reynolds said with a grin that Vex Talia was beginning to find both unsettling and strangely compelling. Because we humans have a long proud tradition of doing exactly the opposite. Lieutenant Morgan, please contact the Relentless and tell them to prepare Operation Crazy Enough to work. Captain, Morgan replied with an identical grin. I was hoping you'd say that. Vex Talia felt a strange sensation in her thoracic cavity, something between dread and, though she would never admit it, the faintest glimmer of hope. These humans were clearly insane, but perhaps, just perhaps, that was exactly what the Alliance needed right now. The Alliance command center buzzed with activity as the countdown to the Dominion's arrival ticked inexorably downward. Holographic displays showed the positions of all 17 Alliance cruisers, arranged in a classic Pincer 7 formation that had been standard tactical doctrine for the last 3 centuries. And then there was the Relentless, positioned slightly off-center from the main formation in what Tactical Officer Zreen had described as the most bizarre and strategically unsound position possible. Captain Reynolds had merely smiled at this assessment and said, "Trust me, we're exactly where we need to be." Vex Talia stood at the central command platform, her exoskeleton tense as she surveyed the battlefield. Despite her better judgment, she had allowed the humans to participate in the defense. Not that she had much choice. Reynolds had politely but firmly refused to withdraw his vessel to safety, stating that where we come from, we don't abandon our friends, even the ones who think we're primitive monkeys. The Relentless had been assigned to the auxiliary support group, with strict instructions to stay out of the main engagement and focus on protecting the medical and supply vessels. Reynolds had agreed to these orders with suspicious readiness. Dominion fleet emerging from hyperspace in 3, 2, 1, announced Sensor Specialist Kip, his fur standing on end with tension. The holographic display flashed as 36 Dominion warships materialized at the edge of the system. Their sleek, predatory forms seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating the impression of moving shadows against the stars. Standard Dominion attack pattern, observed Zreen. 3-tier assault wave with heavy cruisers at the vanguard. Alliance fleet, maintain formation, Vex Talia ordered. Prepare phase shield harmonization on my mark. The communications officer raised a tendril. Commander, the Relentless is requesting permission to break formation. Denied. Vex Talia said immediately. Tell them to maintain their assigned position. They say they've spotted a tactical opportunity and are going to take a little detour. Before Vex Talia could respond, the holographic display showed the Relentless accelerating away from its position, heading not away from the battle as she had feared, but directly toward it. "What are they doing?" she demanded. "Open a channel." Reynolds' face appeared on the communication screen, looking annoyingly calm. "Yes, Commander. Captain Reynolds, you are violating direct orders. Return to your assigned position immediately." "About that," Reynolds said with an apologetic smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We've spotted a weakness in the Dominion formation. We're going to exploit it." "There is no weakness. Their formation is textbook perfect." "Perhaps by your textbooks," Reynolds replied. "But we're reading from a different book. Don't worry, we've got this under control. You are going to get yourselves killed." Vex Talia's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. "Possibly," Reynolds conceded. "But I don't think so. Lieutenant Morgan has run the numbers, and she gives us at least a 60% chance of success." 60% is unacceptably low. Reynolds actually laughed. "Commander, where I come from, those are fantastic odds." Relentless out. The communication cut off, leaving Vex Talia staring at the display in horror as the tiny human vessel continued its suicidal course directly toward the Dominion vanguard. "Should we dispatch ships to retrieve them?" asked Zreen. Vex Talia clicked her mandibles in frustration. "We can't spare any. The Dominion will be in weapons range in 30 seconds. All ships, prepare for engagement." The Alliance cruisers hummed with power as their weapons systems charged, phase shields harmonizing to create a synchronized defense grid that could, in theory, repel the first wave of Dominion attacks. In practice, Alliance ships had been consistently outmatched in previous engagements. The Dominion fleet advanced with mechanical precision, their formation unchanged, despite the single small vessel heading toward them. They either hadn't noticed the Relentless, or considered it too insignificant to bother with. "Dominion fleet opening fire," reported Kip, his voice tight. Streams of accelerated particles and graviton disruptors lanced from the Dominion ships, impacting the Alliance phase shields in brilliant flashes of energy. The shields held, but the power drain was substantial. "Return fire," ordered Vex Talia. "Target their lead cruisers." The Alliance fleet responded, their own weapons blazing across space. Most were absorbed by the Dominion's superior shields, but a few found their mark, causing minimal damage. And then something unexpected happened. The Relentless, which had continued its direct approach toward the Dominion vanguard, suddenly executed a maneuver that defied several laws of physics, at least according to Alliance understanding. The ship spun on its axis while maintaining its forward momentum, presenting its least armored side to the enemy in what appeared to be an act of sheer madness. "What are they doing?" gasped Engineer Locks. "That's suicide." But instead of being destroyed, the Relentless began ejecting what appeared to be space debris. "Are they jettisoning their garbage?" asked Zreen incredulously. The debris, dozens of small metallic objects, scattered into the path of the oncoming Dominion ships, seemingly harmless. The Dominion fleet made no attempt to avoid them. "Commander," Kip's voice had risen an octave, "I'm detecting multiple small power signatures activating within the debris field." Before anyone could respond, the debris detonated in a synchronized cascade of explosions, not particularly powerful explosions by Alliance standards, but they weren't designed to destroy the Dominion ships. They were designed to disrupt their phase shift technology. "EMP mines," exclaimed Locks, his gelatinous form rippling with surprise. "They're using localized electromagnetic pulse devices to destabilize the Dominion's quantum field generators." The effect was immediate and dramatic. 3 Dominion cruisers flickered like faulty holograms as their phase shift systems temporarily failed, leaving them fully materialized in normal space, and suddenly vulnerable. "Target those ships," Vex Talia ordered instantly, seizing the opportunity. All available weapons. The Alliance cruisers redirected their fire, concentrating on the vulnerable Dominion vessels. Without their phase shift advantage, the enemy ships took heavy damage, their shields collapsing under the concentrated assault. Meanwhile, the Relentless had completed its seemingly reckless maneuver, and was now racing along the flank of the Dominion formation, drawing fire away from the Alliance fleet, and creating chaos in the normally precise enemy battle line. "The humans are buying us time," Vex Talia realized aloud. "Press the advantage. All ships advance." The Alliance fleet surged forward, abandoning the defensive Pincer 7 formation for a more aggressive approach. With 3 of their vanguard cruisers crippled, and their formation disrupted, the Dominion fleet was forced to recalibrate their attack strategy. On the communication screen, Lieutenant Morgan's face appeared, her expression tense but exhilarated. "Commander, we've uploaded targeting data to your systems. There's a fluctuation pattern in their shield harmonics when they're adjusting from phase shift disruption. If you time your weapon strikes to match the pattern, you can increase penetration by nearly 40%. Engineer Locks quickly analyzed the data. "She's right. How did they even identify this pattern? We watch a lot of science fiction," Morgan replied with a grin before cutting the transmission. Vex Talia didn't understand the reference, but she immediately ordered the new targeting parameters distributed throughout the fleet. The effect was immediate. Alliance weapons began penetrating Dominion shields with unprecedented effectiveness. For the first time in the conflict, the Dominion ships began to retreat. On the main tactical display, the Relentless could be seen executing another impossible maneuver, somehow using the gravitational eddy from a damaged Dominion cruiser to slingshot itself back toward the Alliance fleet. "Their hull integrity is down to 60%, reported Kip, monitoring the human vessel's status. "They've taken heavy damage to their port side, and their main reactor is showing signs of instability." "Hail them," ordered Vex Talia. "Tell them to dock immediately for repairs." When Reynolds' face appeared on screen again, his bridge was filled with smoke, and a small fire appeared to be burning in the background. Despite this, he was smiling broadly. "Commander, quite a party, isn't it? Captain Reynolds, your ship is critically damaged. Return to our flagship immediately for emergency repairs." "Oh this," Reynolds gestured dismissively at the chaos around him. "Just a scratch. You should see what we did to them." In the background, a human crew member was enthusiastically extinguishing the fire, while shouting what Vex Talia's translator identified as creative profanity. "Besides," Reynolds continued, "the Dominion is regrouping. They'll be back with reinforcements, and next time they'll be ready for our little EMP trick. We need to plan our next move." Vex Talia's tactical training told her he was right. The Dominion would adapt quickly. This victory, and it was a victory however unexpected, was temporary. "Very well. Return to the Celestial Harmony. We'll convene a tactical planning session immediately." As the Relentless limped back toward the Alliance flagship, Vex Talia found herself reassessing everything she thought she knew about warfare, and about humans. The bridge was uncharacteristically quiet, as her officers processed what they had just witnessed. Finally, Zreen broke the silence. "Commander, the humans' tactics were unorthodox." "That," Vex Talia replied dryly, "is an understatement of galactic proportions. But effective," added Locks. "They identified a weakness in Dominion technology that our scientists missed for 2 years, and exploited it with technology so primitive that the Dominion didn't even recognize it as a threat until it was too late." Vex Talia concluded, "Perhaps there's something to be said for thinking unconventionally." As she watched the damaged but still functional Relentless approach the docking bay, Vex Talia felt something she hadn't experienced in quite some time: hope. These humans were chaotic, unpredictable, and possibly insane. But they had accomplished more in one engagement than the Alliance had in months of conventional warfare. For the first time, Vex Talia began to consider the previously unthinkable, that this insignificant species from an unremarkable planet might actually help the Alliance win this war. She just hoped the galaxy would survive their help. Vex Talia had never set foot on a human vessel before. She had never wanted to, but necessity and curiosity had overcome her reservations. The interior of the Relentless was nothing like the sleek, immaculate corridors of an Alliance ship. The walls were exposed metal, lined with bundles of cables that had no business being visible. Pipes ran along the ceiling, occasionally dripping substances that the humans simply wiped away without concern. Panels that should have been perfectly aligned were instead slightly askew, with visible screws and bolts holding them in place. And yet, somehow, the ship worked. "Watch your head there, Commander," Captain Reynolds warned, as they ducked beneath a hanging cluster of wire. "We're still repairing the damage from our little dance with the Dominion." "This," Vex Talia gestured at the exposed circuitry, "is your idea of a starship." Reynolds chuckled. "Not pretty, is it? But she's got character, and she gets the job done." "Character," Vex Talia repeated, her translator struggling with the concept as applied to an inanimate object. "Humans form emotional attachments to their vessels," Lieutenant Morgan explained, walking beside them. "It's a tradition dating back to our earliest seafaring days. Ships are always she, and they always have personalities." "Fascinating," Vex Talia murmured, though her tone suggested she found it more concerning than fascinating. In the Alliance, Ships are tools. Highly sophisticated, aesthetically pleasing tools, but tools nonetheless. That's your first problem right there. Came a new voice from inside an open access panel. A pair of legs protruded from the wall, attached to a body that was otherwise hidden from view. You don't love your ships enough. The legs wiggled, and a human emerged from the access panel. He was shorter than Reynolds, with dark skin covered in smudges of some black substance and wild, curly hair peppered with gray. His uniform, if it could be called that, was a far cry from Reynolds' relatively neat attire, consisting of a stained jumpsuit with numerous pockets bulging with tools. "Commander Vex Talia, meet Chief Engineer Rusty Daniels," Reynolds said. "The miracle worker who keeps this bucket of bolts flying, despite physics' best efforts to the contrary." Daniels wiped his hands on a rag that seemed to make them dirtier, rather than cleaner. "Pleasure to meet you, Commander. Heard your people were impressed by our little EMP trick." "Impressed is not the word I would use," Vex Talia replied. "Bewildered might be more accurate. How did you develop such technology? Our scans indicated your ship lacks even basic quantum computing capabilities." Daniels grinned, revealing teeth that were startlingly white against his dark, smudged face. "Don't need quantum computing when you've got duct tape and coffee." Vex Talia's translator faltered completely at this statement, emitting a confused chirp. "He's joking," Morgan clarified. Sort of nothing," Daniels countered. "Half this ship is held together with duct tape and zip ties, and I'm pretty sure the port thruster wouldn't fire up in the morning without the coffee grounds I dump in the auxiliary fuel processor." "He's still joking," Reynolds assured Vex Talia, who was looking increasingly alarmed. Mostly, Vex Talia decided to redirect the conversation. "Captain, while I appreciate the uniqueness of your vessel, I must confess I'm still uncertain as to how you managed to identify the fluctuation pattern in the Dominion shields, when our best scientists have been studying them for years without success." Reynolds gestured for them to continue walking. "That's actually why I invited you aboard, Commander. I want to show you our secret weapon." They proceeded deeper into the ship, passing more exposed machinery, and humans engaged in repair work. Unlike the serene, methodical approach of Alliance engineers, the humans seemed to work in a state of constant mild panic, shouting to each other, and occasionally striking malfunctioning equipment with tools. One technician was actually kicking a console rhythmically, while another adjusted something inside it. "Does that help?" Vex Talia couldn't help asking. "Percussive maintenance," Daniels explained cheerfully. "Sometimes you gotta remind the machines who's boss." Finally, they reached what appeared to be a recreational area. Several off-duty crew members were gathered around tables, some playing games with physical pieces that they moved across gridded surfaces, others consuming liquids of various colors. "This is your secret weapon?" Vex Talia asked skeptically. "Recreation, in a manner of speaking," Reynolds replied, leading her to a specific table where a group of humans were engaged in heated discussion over what appeared to be a holographic display of the Dominion flagship. "Commander, meet our overthinking department," Reynolds said, gesturing to the group. A human female with short spiky hair looked up. "We prefer Tactical Innovation Team, Captain." "This is Dr. Ellie Park, our Chief Science Officer," Reynolds introduced. "And these are her fellow overthinkers." "Don't let the casual setting fool you," Morgan added. "Don't let the casual setting fool you," Morgan added. "This is where we do our best work. Formal conference rooms make us uncomfortable." Dr. Park stood and offered a hand in the human greeting gesture. "Commander Vex Talia, it's an honor. Your approach to crisis leadership in the Battle of Zentax Prime is studied in our tactical academies." Vex Talia's antenna twitched in surprise. "You know of that engagement? We've been studying your conflict extensively since we detected your transmissions," Park explained. "We're particularly interested in the Dominion's phase shift technology. It's theoretically similar to concepts our physicists have been exploring for decades. But you don't possess such technology yourselves," Vex Talia noted. "Not yet," Park admitted. "But just because we can't build something doesn't mean we can't understand its principles and its weaknesses." She gestured to the holographic display. "Your alliance has been fighting the Dominion with conventional tactics, targeting what you perceive as structural weaknesses, weapon emplacements, shield generators, propulsion systems. But the real vulnerability is in the phase shift field itself." Park manipulated the hologram, zooming in on what appeared to be an unremarkable section of the Dominion flagship's hull. "The field generators create a quantum resonance pattern that allows the ship to partially exist in another dimension. This pattern has to maintain perfect harmony across the entire vessel, or the phase shift fails. Yes, this is basic quantum physics, Vex Talia said, a touch impatiently. The field is self-stabilizing through quantum entanglement, except it isn't, Park countered. Not completely. There's a cascading recalibration that occurs every 4.3 seconds. It's almost imperceptible, but during that microsecond, the field is vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies. Vex Talia stared at the display. That's how did you determine this? We watched them, said another human at the table, this one with pale skin and red facial hair. For hours, days, recorded every encounter from your database, analyzed the pattern, and we drank a lot of coffee, added a third human, like an unhealthy amount. Coffee, Vex Talia's translator struggled again. Another human secret weapon, Reynolds explained with a smile. Highly caffeinated beverage that keeps us awake and makes us think we're smarter than we actually are. He guided Vex Talia to a nearby table where several containers of steaming liquid sat. Would you like to try some? It's perfectly safe for Calarian physiology. We checked. Vex Talia hesitated, then decided that cultural exchange was part of her diplomatic duty. She accepted a small cup and, after observing the proper technique from Reynolds, carefully brought it to her mandibles. The sensation was extraordinary. Bitter yet complex, hot yet invigorating. Her entire nervous system seemed to tingle. This is not unpleasant, she admitted, taking another sip. High praise from a Calarian, Morgan commented with a smile. Usually aliens either love it or projectile vomit. Lieutenant, Reynolds chided gently. What? It's true. Remember the Arcturian ambassador? Vex Talia decided to redirect the conversation again. So your tactical innovation team identified this weakness in the Dominion phase shift technology through simple observation. Simple, time-consuming, mind-numbing observation, Park corrected. But yes, we humans are particularly good at noticing patterns. It's how we survived as a species before we developed advanced technology. We're also really good at making educated guesses, added the red-haired human. Or as we call it, scientific intuition. You mean guessing, Vex Talia said flatly. Educated guessing, Park insisted. Based on data, and sometimes it works. Reynolds guided Vex Talia away from the table, toward another section of the recreational area, where humans were engaged in some sort of physical activity involving the throwing of small projectiles at a circular target. You see, Commander, the Alliance has been fighting this war according to established doctrine. Logical, methodical, by the book, and you've been losing. The Dominion's technology, Vex Talia began, is superior in some ways, yes, Reynolds conceded. But that's not why you're losing. You're losing because you're predictable. The word hung in the air between them, simple yet devastating in its accuracy. The Dominion knows exactly how you'll respond to any given situation, Reynolds continued. They can anticipate your tactics because they follow the same logical progression that any advanced civilization would develop. But humans are illogical, Vex Talia finished for him. Exactly, Reynolds beamed as if she'd paid him a compliment. We're messy, unpredictable, and occasionally brilliant in ways that make no sense. We try things that shouldn't work because we don't know any better, and sometimes just often enough to be dangerous, those things actually work. A loud cheer erupted from the group playing the projectile game as someone apparently scored a significant point. That's Ted from Hydroponics, Reynolds noted. Terrible at his actual job, but somehow amazing at darts after exactly 2.5 beers. Beers, another beverage, less caffeine, more alcohol, makes humans simultaneously worse at most things, but occasionally better at specific tasks. We don't fully understand it ourselves. Vex Talia's head was beginning to spin, and she wasn't sure if it was from the coffee or the increasingly bizarre human cultural insights. Captain Reynolds, while this cultural exchange is educational, I fail to see how it advances our tactical position against the Dominion. Reynolds' expression grew more serious. That's exactly the point, Commander. The Dominion doesn't understand humans any better than you do. They can't predict what we'll do because often, neither can we, and that's our advantage. He gestured around the room. This chaos, this messiness, it's not a bug, it's a feature. We thrive in it. And the Dominion, with their perfectly coordinated fleet and precisely calculated attack patterns, doesn't know how to respond when someone doesn't follow the script. Vex Talia considered this. It was true that the Alliance had been fighting a losing war despite their advanced technology and millennia of tactical doctrine, And it was also true that the humans' unpredictable approach had achieved what countless carefully planned Alliance operations had failed to do. So your proposal is, what, exactly? That we abandon 12,000 years of military doctrine in favor of improvisation? Not exactly, Reynolds said. We're not suggesting you change who you are. We're offering to be the wild card in your otherwise perfect hand. You keep doing what you do best, coordinated precision strikes with your advanced technology, and we'll do what we do best, cause chaos and confusion in ways no one can anticipate. A loud crash from across the room drew their attention. A human had apparently fallen off a chair while attempting to reach a high shelf, bringing down several containers of food in the process. Case in point, Reynolds said with a sigh, Ensign Miller creating tactical diversion even during downtime. Despite herself, Vex Talia felt her mandibles twitch in what for a Calirian was the equivalent of a smile. There was something strangely compelling about these chaotic, contradictory creatures. Very well, Captain. I believe I begin to understand your perspective. But I must ask, what is Operation Crazy Enough to work? You mentioned it earlier, and I confess I'm concerned. Reynolds smiled enigmatically. That, Commander, is our plan for dealing with the Dominion flagship and its infamous singularity cannon. But I think it's better demonstrated than explained. Some things are just too crazy to sound plausible when put into words. That, said Vex Talia with feeling, is not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be, Reynolds replied cheerfully. More coffee. The command center of the Celestial Harmony was silent as the tactical display updated, showing the approaching Dominion fleet. This time there would be no small victory, no temporary advantage. The Dominion had returned with a vengeance, their forces nearly doubled and their formation adapted to counter the tactics used in the previous engagement. 47 warships, Tactical Officer Zreen reported, his cybernetic eye whirring as it processed the data, including 3 dreadnoughts and the Dominion flagship. They're not taking any chances this time, Vex Talia observed. They mean to crush us completely. Captain Reynolds stood beside her, studying the display with narrowed eyes. He looked uncharacteristically serious, though there was still a hint of that peculiar human confidence in his posture. They're arranged in a modified thorax formation, he noted, designed to counter our EMP mines. They've learned. As we expected, Lieutenant Morgan added, from her position near the communications station, and their shield harmonics have been recalibrated. Our previous approach won't work again. Vex Talia's antenna twitched with nervous energy. The Alliance reinforcements won't arrive for another 20 cycles. We have 17 cruisers against their 47. By conventional analysis, our chances of victory are 0, Zreen finished bluntly. Less than 0 if such a value were mathematically possible. Good thing we don't rely on conventional analysis then, Reynolds said with a sudden grin. He turned to face the assembled Alliance officers. Ladies, gentlemen, and entities of non-binary gender designation, it's time for Operation Crazy Enough to work. He gestured to Dr. Park, who stepped forward with a data tablet. Based on our analysis of the Dominion flagship, we've identified the quantum resonance frequency of their phase shift technology. If we can generate a counter frequency of sufficient power, we can force their entire fleet to remain in normal space, negating their primary tactical advantage. We've attempted similar approaches, Engineer Locks pointed out. Our scientists calculated that the energy requirements for such a counter frequency would exceed the output of 3 Alliance cruisers combined, leaving those ships defenseless. Correct, Park nodded. By conventional methods, it's impossible, but we're not using conventional methods. She displayed a schematic that made several Alliance officers gasp in alarm. You want to overload your ship's reactor? Vex Talia asked incredulously. That's not a plan, it's suicide. Not exactly, Chief Engineer Daniels interjected, stepping forward with a device in his hands that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts. We're going to create a controlled antimatter cascade. All the power of a reactor overload, but directed into this fancy gizmo instead of, exploding us. It's never been tested, Morgan admitted. But the math checks out. Mostly, echoed Locks, his gelatinous form rippling with alarm. 87% confidence, Park clarified, which for an experimental quantum physics application is actually quite good. Vex Talia stared at the humans. You're proposing to create an untested antimatter reaction aboard your vessel, in the middle of a battle, with only an 87% chance that it won't destroy you instantly, and a 63% chance it'll take out half the Dominion fleet if it does explode, Daniels added helpfully. So win-win. This is madness, Zerine declared. This is humanity, Reynolds corrected with a shrug. Look, Commander, I understand your concerns, but the fact is, we're out of conventional options. The Dominion fleet will be here in 40 minutes. They will destroy your forces, and then they'll proceed to your core worlds. This is our last stand, and it's time for a Hail Mary. What? Vex Talia's translator failed again. A desperate low-probability play with high potential reward, Morgan translated. Named after an ancient Earth sport where you throw a ball and pray someone catches it. You're asking me to stake the survival of the Alliance on a prayer. Vex Talia's mandibles clicked rapidly in distress. I'm asking you to trust us, Reynolds said quietly. We've earned that much, haven't we? Vex Talia looked at the tactical display again, the overwhelming Dominion force represented by an advancing wall of red markers. Then she looked at Reynolds and his team, strange illogical creatures who had nonetheless achieved what the Alliance could not. Very well, she said finally. What do you need from us? Reynolds smiled, not the manic grin she had come to associate with his more outlandish ideas, but a genuine expression of gratitude. We need a distraction, a big one. The Relentless needs to get close to the Dominion flagship inside their defensive screen. Impossible, Zerine stated flatly. Their screen consists of 26 support vessels in a perfect defensive matrix. Nothing's perfect, Reynolds countered. We just need to create an opening. Your ships will execute attack pattern Delta 7, focusing all fire on this section of their screen. He indicated a point on the display. It won't break through, but it will draw their attention. Meanwhile, the Relentless will approach from the opposite vector, using the radiation from your weapon's fire to mask our signature. And once you reach the flagship, Vex Talia asked, we activate our device, generate the counter frequency, and force their entire fleet out of phase shift. Then your ships target these specific points on their vessels. Park highlighted several seemingly unremarkable sections on the Dominion ship schematics. Hit them there while they're stabilizing, and you'll create a cascading system failure. Those aren't standard tactical targets, Zerine observed. No, they're the quantum stabilization nodes that maintain their field integrity, Park explained. Nobody targets them because they're not vital to conventional ship operations, but they're the linchpin of their phase shift capability. The plan was unorthodox, risky, and relied on technology that even the humans admitted was experimental. By all rational standards, Vex Talia should reject it immediately. But the Alliance had tried rationality for 2 years, and they were losing the war. Transmit the target coordinates to all Alliance vessels, she ordered. We'll execute attack pattern Delta 7 on your mark, Captain Reynolds. The command center erupted in activity as the Alliance prepared for battle. Reynolds and his team returned to the Relentless, which had been hastily repaired, following the previous engagement. 30 minutes later, as the Dominion fleet entered the outer reaches of the system, Vex Talia opened a fleet-wide channel. Alliance vessels, this is Commander Vex Talia. Today we face overwhelming odds. By conventional wisdom, this battle cannot be won. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. But our human allies have taught me that convention is sometimes the enemy of victory. Today we fight not as we have been trained to fight, but as we must fight to survive. Execute attack pattern Delta 7 on my mark. For the Alliance, the response was immediate and resolute. Whatever their reservations about the humans' plan, the Alliance crews were soldiers, and they would follow orders to the end. Dominion fleet entering weapons range, reported Kip, his fur now standing completely on end. They're charging weapons. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta 7, Vex Talia commanded. Mark. The Alliance fleet surged forward in a coordinated assault, focusing their fire on the designated section of the Dominion screen. As Reynolds had predicted, the Dominion shifted their formation to counter the attack, reinforcing the targeted area. Meanwhile, the Relentless accelerated away from the main battle, circling wide to approach the Dominion flagship from behind. On Vex Talia's display, the human vessel appeared as a small blue dot, easily overlooked amid the chaos of the larger engagement. The Relentless has cleared the battle zone, reported Communications Officer Drell. They're on approach to the Dominion flagship. Alliance cruiser Intrepid has been destroyed. Kip announced grimly. The Valiant and Defiance are taking heavy damage. Maintain the assault, Vex Talia ordered, though her heart ached at the losses. We must hold their attention. On the tactical display, the small blue dot representing the Relentless continued its approach, weaving through the outer edges of the Dominion formation. It was a masterful piece of piloting, or absolute insanity. Perhaps both. The Relentless has reached the Dominion defensive perimeter, Drell reported, his voice tight with tension. They've been detected. Dominion vessels are breaking formation to intercept. All ships increase attack intensity. Vex Talia commanded. Draw their attention back to us. The Alliance cruisers responded, pouring even more fire into the Dominion screen. 2 more Alliance vessels winked out of existence on the tactical display, but their sacrifice allowed the Relentless to slip past the first line of defenders. The Relentless is taking heavy fire, Kip reported. Their shields are failing. Can we render assistance? Vex Talia asked, knowing the answer even as she spoke. Negative, Zerine replied grimly. Any ship that breaks formation will be destroyed before they can reach the Relentless. Vex Talia watched helplessly as the human vessel's status indicators flashed warning red. Yet somehow, incredibly, the Relentless continued its approach toward the Dominion flagship. They've breached the inner defensive screen, Drell announced in disbelief. The Relentless is on direct approach to the flagship. The next few moments unfolded with surreal clarity. On the tactical display, the blue dot representing the Relentless merged with the imposing red silhouette of the Dominion flagship. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then a pulse of energy erupted from the point of contact, not an explosion, but a rippling wave that spread outward through space, washing over the entire Dominion fleet. Energy spike detected, Kip shouted. It's the counter-frequency. On the display, the Dominion vessels flickered, their phase shift technology disrupted by the human device. For the first time, the entire Dominion fleet was fully materialized in normal space. All ships, target the quantum stabilization nodes, Vex Talia ordered. Fire at will. The Alliance fleet responded instantly, their weapons finding the previously identified weak points on the Dominion vessels. The effect was even more dramatic than Park had predicted. As the quantum stabilization nodes failed, cascading system failures spread throughout the Dominion ships. Some lost power entirely, while others began to break apart as their structural integrity fields collapsed. The Dominion flagship is experiencing a critical reactor fluctuation, Zerine reported, his cybernetic eye whirring rapidly as it processed the data. Their singularity cannon is destabilizing, and the Relentless? Vex Talia asked, dreading the answer. There was a pause, as Kip checked his readings. Still intact, Commander, but their systems are offline. They appear to be on emergency power only. Before Vex Talia could respond, the tactical display lit up with a massive energy surge. The Dominion flagship's reactor had breached, creating a shockwave that rippled through its fleet. Ship after ship winked out, as the chain reaction spread, transforming the once mighty Dominion force into a field of debris. The Relentless? Vex Talia demanded. Where is the Relentless? Kip frantically searched the sensor readings. I can't locate them, Commander. The energy discharge is interfering with our sensors. For long moments, the command center was silent, as the aftermath of the explosion cleared. Finally, Kip spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. Commander, I've found them. The Relentless was caught in the edge of the shockwave. They're adrift, minimal life support only.
Get me a tractor beam on that ship immediately, Vex Talia ordered, and prepare medical teams. All available ships commence search and rescue operations for any Dominion survivors. As the Alliance fleet shifted from battle to rescue operations, Vex Talia watched the shattered remnants of the once mighty Dominion force dispersing across the viewport. Against all odds, against all logic, they had won. Thanks to a plan crazy enough to work. The medical bay of the Celestial Harmony was at maximum capacity. Alliance medical technicians moved efficiently among the wounded, while Captain Reynolds argued with a gelatinous Morbian physician. If you try to stick that tentacle in my ear again, Reynolds warned, I swear I'll tie it in a knot. It is a medical scanner, the physician responded indignantly. I am attempting to assess your neurological functions, which appear compromised given your decision to fly directly at an enemy flagship. Vextalia entered, her exoskeleton bearing fresh scorch marks. Your Lieutenant Morgan is arguing with medical technicians. Daniels has converted our spare parts storage into a workshop. Dr. Park has commandeered our planning center with incomprehensible diagrams and caffeine. Sounds about right, Reynolds grinned weakly. And the Relentless? Your vessel is being evaluated. Our engineers are having difficulty distinguishing between battle damage and its normal state of disrepair. Gets 'em every time. So did we win? Vextalia's antenna twitched. Captain Reynolds, you destroyed the Dominion flagship, neutralized their singularity cannon, disabled their phase shift technology, and created a tactical breakthrough that Alliance strategists will study for generations. Yes, we won. Cool. Just checking. Reynolds shifted uncomfortably. There's something we need to discuss. The paperwork for the Alliance, the formal one between Earth and your Grand Galactic Alliance. Formal admission typically takes decades, sometimes centuries, Vextalia explained. So we'll need extra forms then. Before she could respond, High Commander Zex Vitali entered, his exoskeleton gleaming with ceremonial polish. So this is the human who has upended 12,000 years of tactical doctrine. Reynolds attempted a casual salute from his bed. Just doing what comes naturally. Chaos is our specialty. The Alliance Council is intrigued, the High Commander stated. They have authorized an unprecedented offer, a formal military collaboration with Earth forces, bypassing standard protocols. Just like that, no centuries of paperwork. There will be paperwork, the High Commander assured him, but the process will be expedited. Recent events have made it clear that the Alliance must evolve to survive. After the High Commander departed, Reynolds turned to Vextalia. I was thinking we might bring some examples of human culture to the upcoming summit. Nothing major, just movies, games, maybe introduce poker night to the Admiralty. Absolutely not, Vextalia said firmly. The last thing the Alliance needs is a governing body addicted to gambling and beer pong. Fair enough. But at least let me bring coffee. Vextalia considered the chaos that might ensue if the Alliance leadership were suddenly introduced to the stimulant that fueled human unpredictability. The thought should have horrified her. Instead she found herself making that clicking sound that humans recognized as laughter. Very well, Captain. Coffee is authorized. As she left, her communicator pinged with urgent messages. Lieutenant Morgan had bypassed security protocols and was broadcasting rock music to the entire fleet, while Daniels had improved the flagship's engines by 30% using what appeared to be chewing gum and wire hangers. Vextalia shook her head in resigned amusement. The Alliance's perfectly ordered existence had come to an end. Humanity had arrived, bringing chaos, coffee and crazy plans that just might work. The galaxy would never be the same again, and oddly enough, she was beginning to think that might be a good thing.